uh, Vice Chancellor for Science Policy and Research Strategy in Pitt Research. And let's go to the next slide, Toby. And joined today by Amanda Godley, who is Vice Provost for Graduate Studies. Shalom Gooden, my colleague in Pitt Research, is not able to make it today, so Toby will be guest starring as Shalom.
I'll do my
And and he's our manager of strategic initiatives here in Pitt Research and works with me. Okay, next slide, please. So our info session today, we're going to cover, describe what the Pitt Momentum Funds are, talk about the application process, the review process, and again, any and all questions, no matter how big, how small, that's what the session is here for. So we want to make sure everybody has any and all questions cleared up. So feel free. I'm okay with interruptions, but we can do all the questions at the end as well. Next slide. Okay, so this is sort of a explanation as to what the motivation was for setting up the Pitt Momentum Funds back in 2019. And this is a program that is a joint project of both the Senior Vice Chancellor for Research and the Provost. And so, from our perspective in Pitt Research, a goal of this is very crassly, it's research development funds. We want to set you up to successfully pursue outside external sponsored funds, whether that's from foundations or from federal agencies. And we really do have made some design choices in the Pitt Momentum Funds to facilitate collaborations that are important to the research agencies. So, one, very broad interdisciplinary research is sort of a theme that many agencies are pushing, as well as larger scale research. But also this desire to have research in universities connected to potential users. So that can be community partners, um, you know, state and local agencies, but also with the Biden administration, there's a big push to like diversify where federal funding agencies spend their money. So they're creating programs where HBCUs and other minority serving institutions are intended to lead. So we want to make sure that our faculty are well equipped to pursue any and all of those types of mechanisms, and that you have sort of the biggest pursue the thing that's your most ambitious goals. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda to make some comments from the Provost's office.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for being here. I will be brief, and I just wanted to say that the Momentum Funds represent a really important collaboration between the Office of the Provost and the Senior Vice Chancellor for Research and the Office of Research. The funds and the portfolio of funding opportunities within the Momentum Funds have really been built over the past few years to streamline internal funding opportunities for faculty engaged in research and to create more opportunities for cross-disciplinary collaboration. And from the view of the Office of the Provost, we see this as really important, not just from the point of view of expanding research across the university, but for building on something that Pitt is known for, which is innovative cross-disciplinary research and collaboration. So these funds allow us to both recognize the important research and scholarship that is happening across fields, not just fields that often receive large grants, such as health sciences and lab sciences, but also fields such as the humanities, where Pitt is also known for exceptional research, and research funding can be extremely helpful to faculty and their projects. So we're interested both in seeing how the grants can offer scaffolding for large collaborative grants that tackle really difficult societal problems, and also how we can support individual faculty in ways that they might not be able to. They might not be able to get the kind of external funding they need. So thanks, Mike. I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks. And I do want to say one thing that we always sort of welcome any and all projects that are related to the year of theme that is established by the provost's office. So this year is continuing that year of discourse and dialogue. And that's something that you can select, to self-identify that alignment. But it's not a requirement, and it doesn't sort of, it doesn't tip the scales in your favor. It's just one of those things that we want to make sure that folks who are interested in the year of theme, because the year of committee doesn't have enough funding to they support mainly events, and don't really have a lot of funding for research. We do want to make sure that people are aware that, we're more than welcome to take research projects related to the topic, and consider them in the Pitt Momentum Funds. So with that, I will point you to sort of like this slide here that talks about the different programs that we have. So we're focused on those teal programs that are on the left side of the slide. So there are 4 programs. So the priming awards are up to 25K. Those were very much intended to support individual scholarship. And it really is, again, across the full spectrum of scholarship at the university, there are varying needs for funding. And for some folks in the arts and humanities, the problem is less initiating a project than getting it across the finish line. And so those priming awards, again, really intended individual scholarship. They can be small groups of faculty, but that's not a requirement by any stretch of the imagination. There, we do allow that sort of finishing up projects as well, but we need a clear explanation as to why. The next piece are the teaming awards. Those were intended to, as the name says, bring groups of scholars together across disciplines to work on a larger project. And this one, it is one of the only sources of money that allows you to really build the team and put together like a research strategy to really, define where those scientific opportunities are that lie at the intersection of fields. Sort of, make sure everybody's on the same page, using the same language, that kind of a thing. It's an opportunity to go and talk to program managers in the federal agencies or in the foundations. And or if you need to bring in, need to build a team that includes people from outside of Pitt, and you need those collaborators from other institutions from across the country, this is funding to allow you to bring people to campus to have those strategic planning meetings. It wasn't really intended for sort of early results per se, but we don't preclude that. And then the scaling awards are the largest at 400K over 2 years. And that really is very much about getting early results, proof of principle, so that you can go in and chase these very large awards. So it's identifying project risks, investing in risk reduction, project planning, making sure you know exactly what needs to do and when and where, and sort of getting the team coalesced and ready to run after a major investment of external funding. And then there are arts and humanities microgrants. These are actually, there's a fall cycle and a spring cycle for the microgrants. Those are up to $3,000, and they undergo a much more simplified review process than do the priming, teaming, and scaling awards. I will say on the teaming and the scaling awards, we'll discuss it further later, but this eligibility question, the teaming and the scaling, you do have to have a team of 3 faculty members that are to make an eligible proposal. They do have to come from across campus, and so we have an eligibility test for that we will explain later. Next slide.
Okay.
So, Toby?
Yeah.
Sure.
So as Mike was saying, with the arts and humanities microgrants, these are intended specifically for those folks in the arts and humanities where it's difficult to find enough funding that's a quick turnaround. So they can either finish a project or just expand the work they're currently working on. So these are small scale opportunities up to $3,000 for 1 year. As Mike indicated, they're both awarded in the fall and the spring. So there will be two application cycles. But again, these are intended to be a quick turnaround for people who may want to finish a book project, may want to that they have something they've been working on, or to really serve as seed money to go after something a little bit larger. So if you start to look at these, they are not intended to replace the priming grants. They are very much a separate entity from them. But really, what we want to see is just a wide variety of creative opportunities and research that could really be behind these. And just if you look at some successful opportunities that have come out of the microgrants, you'll see that they run the gamut of everything. There's been opportunities to help create a literary fest, music ensembles. If you look at from Mina Rajagopalan, she very much used her funding to help chase other opportunities, such as the NEH summer stipend. And that's really what we'd like to see. You can start with something smaller, go after something from the NEH, something from the NEA, just something that's very much in your field of study where you need preliminary data, you need something completed before you move forward with it. And that's what the microgrants are intended for. Mike?
Okay. Priming, these are the 25K, up to 25K for 1 year. And again, the logic is that they are for initiating a new project by an individual faculty member. But more than fine to have a couple of faculty or a small group of faculty apply for a priming grant. That we've had many, many, many priming grants that have been awarded to small teams. The teaming grants, again, as I said, those are really, really, truly intended for like planning, capacity building, pulling together that team necessary to like take a next step. Um, Successfully building a team, particularly an interdisciplinary team, takes a lot more work than many people appreciate, and you sort of don't figure that out until you kind of get into it. And so that's what that program was intended to support. That's up to $60,000 for 1 year. And then the scaling, again, that very detailed project planning, early results, proof of concept, data, reducing technical risk, building out further the team as necessary. Oftentimes you get a little way down the road and you figure out, oh my gosh, we need this additional expertise. That's what that award is intended. And that's 400K over 2 years. Next slide. Just some small changes to the program. Like if you were awarded, like say any award in prior year, you can't apply for that exact same award in the subsequent year. So no two priming awards in a row, or no two teaming awards in a row. Although it is perfectly legit if you did get a priming award to try for a teaming, or if you did have a teaming to try for a scaling. That is perfectly fine. We do want any of you who are funded to serve as potential reviewers in the next cycle of the Momentum Awards. And for these priming uh, awards, we do not count in terms of eligibility review lead investigators from another university in the priming grants. Everything is all of these eligibility reviews that we do for all of the programs are based on faculty here at Pitt. The one exception is on the teaming and the scaling awards. Again, because the research agencies are putting money into mechanisms where they want faculty from HBCUs or other minority serving institutions to be in the lead, and we want our Pitt faculty to be able to be positioned to have real serious collaborative relationships with those faculty, we will, when you're doing this teaming and scaling eligibility review, you can have one of those three faculty members come from an HBCU or an MSI. Or again, because we're interested in, supporting community engaged research, that third member can come from a government agency or a local nonprofit organization that is capable of participating in follow-on funding. And again, that's all, in the context of whatever follow-on funding that you are intending to go after. And so that we sort of look at that in that context. Next slide, please. The eligibility, right? This is a research development program, and so it is intended to support full-time faculty members. Tenure track faculty are presumed to have research as one of their core responsibilities. Appointment stream faculties are every school uses appointment stream in a very different way, and so we look at that on a case-by-case basis, and we'll want you and your chair to explain to us, if you are appointment stream, how research is a part of your core responsibility. We do not want undergraduate, graduate students, postdocs, research associates, or visiting faculty members listed as applicants, or so that's either lead investigators or co-investigators. It's perfectly fine if they're part of the team, but again, we're tracking faculty member participation in this, and for our follow-on metrics, evaluating the program are all based on faculty performance. And you cannot lead any more than one Momentum Fund proposal. So you can participate in like one of a teaming or a scaling proposal and lead a priming grant, or any of those combinations, but you can only lead one proposal in any given cycle. Next slide, please. So priming eligibility, right? It's basically just based on Pitt faculty is what we look at for the review. And that's for all campuses, right? Faculty at regional campuses are absolutely eligible and encouraged to apply for this program. I will say School of Medicine faculty are not eligible for the priming grants, and that's because the med school, just the med school, has a separate program that is effectively identical to the priming grant program, and that is the Competitive Medical Research Fund that's run out of the Office of Health Science Research, ORHS. And so this is the one program for which we run that School of Medicine faculty are not eligible. Next slide, please. Teaming and scaling. There is this sort of cross-campus test that we have. Every teaming and scaling proposal has to have at least 3 faculty members. And for this test, we consider Dietrich, the 3 Dietrich divisions, effectively as separate schools. So humanities, natural sciences, and social science divisions are considered separately, and you can have an eligible team for either teaming or scaling that pulls from 2 of those Dietrich divisions, but not all 3. School of Medicine faculty absolutely eligible for teaming and scaling, and no, like I said, with no all Dietrich teams or proposal teams. Similarly, no all health sciences teams are allowed. So we are very intentionally doing this to create crosstalk and cross collaboration across campus, so that's why we do that. And then, as I mentioned, because so many faculty here at Pitt are engaged in community engaged research. You can have one co-investigator in that of those three that we for the test. Be from a local organization. That could be a nonprofit, state agency, local agency that counts. But that organization does have to be able to participate in the follow-on funding. And again, that all varies by what your intended follow-on funding is. So we in making these reviews, we do look at what you say you are going to pursue. You can have faculty from other R1s involved in the team, but for the eligibility review, they don't count one way or the other. If they're from an HBCU or a non R1 MSI, we'll allow that. Next slide, please. Microgrants.
Yeah, just microgrants follow all the other same eligibility requirements that we described generally. But again, we want to stress the fact that arts and humanities faculty can apply for both a microgrant and other PMF opportunities. So it is more than acceptable for you to try a priming grant, scaling grant, teaming grant as you put in for some of these. The other aspect I want to bring up with the microgrants is that this past year was the first year where we had a sustainability component that was involved with this process. So not only could you apply for something that was specific to arts and humanities, but if you had something that covered a sustainability issue, that was additionally sponsored by the Mascaro Center, such that you could apply for a little bit extra money. So that's $5,000 for 1 year. So that's an eligibility requirement that we would additionally look at in addition to everything else.
Okay. Let's see, we've got just a couple of questions on eligibility, which I want to touch on. Dimitri, any rules related to being a PI or a co-PI on multiple proposals? So what we look at in terms of eligibility is the PI role, that lead investigator. You can only lead one priming or teaming or scaling.
Okay.
That's where we create that. You can be you can be on multiple proposals as a co-investigator. That's perfectly fine. And we don't have a limit on that. The test is only on the lead investigator role.
Okay.
And then Jinyu, possible that the teaming would have 2 faculty members instead of 3. So we do require 3. That is that we do not waive that requirement. So you would need to find another collaborator. Again, and now it could be, again, if you have, if you want to bring in a faculty member, potential collaborator from an MSI, you want to bring in somebody from, a state, local, community partner that would help strengthen the team, that they could count as the third. But yeah, we for the teaming and for the scaling, we do require a core group of 3.
So that means that also requires 3 different departments, right? So instead of only 2.
You can have 2 people from the same well, yeah, it'd be really hard to meet your 3. I mean, we have had it where you have groups that have 5 or 6 faculty applying for a teaming and scaling, and we've had people from, oftentimes it's 2 people from computer science, but they have then another person from Dietrich, and then they have another person from, say, public health, and that gets them that's how we look at the 3.
I see. Thank you.
Let me see. School of Medical. School of Medicine faculty. This is Tasha's. Serve as a collaborator or a partner on a priming grant. Absolutely, but it's going to be led by somebody from outside the School of Medicine. Absolutely, we have had people from medicine as sort of a collaborator on priming. Totally fine. That is not precluded. For James, for consecutive cycles, if you want to grant for teaming and scaling, but we're not the lead. Yeah, I think, yep, you can apply. That's fine. And then Courtney, team is, oh, it jumped. Let me see. The team already received federal funding eligible for a scaling grant to further the same work. Not really. This is absolutely not bridge funding. That would like if you've been funded and now it's like there's an extension of that work and it's going after. So like say you got you know you got an individual or a medium scale award, frontier level in size at NSF, or you got an R01 at NIH, and you're going to take that and you want to take it to the next scale, like pursue a science and technology center or pursue a P30 or a U54, something like that. If you're taking that to like expanding it and onto the next level, totally legit, but we are not bridge funding. There are bridge funding programs across campus, and that would be more appropriate for that kind of a use. Let's see, that was Courtney's question. Tasha, where and how do we access info ready? We have the link on the last slide. We'll get that to you. Leaving 3 minutes for another meeting. Need to go. Oops. Oh, okay. Oh, that was Amanda. Okay. See you, Amanda. We'll do the GSR slide. Can 3 faculty be PI Inquan? Think this? Can 3 faculty be the PI, the co-I? Oh, like we don't slice and dice. We just have the lead investigators and then we have the other investigators. I kind of use the language of co-I, PI, whatever, but like we have somebody who's in the lead, and then we have the other 2 faculty member. Budget example for priming, we'll have Toby follow up with that. And then microgrants to pay graduate students. Yeah, yes, we'll get to that. It has Anna will explain that. So technically yes, but that's that. Okay, so on to how to apply. So expressions of interest.
Mike, just really fast. The last part of Anna's question is specific about can it be used to partially pay for salary, and that is not allowed, correct?
That is, yeah, correct. Yeah, for the first one, the graduate student is allowed within rules, but salary for faculty, no. Okay, so how to apply? For the priming, the teaming, and the scaling grants, we do require an expression of interest due by September 27th. It goes in through InfoReady, and it is very, very light. We're basically project title, 150 words, abstract, the list of the investigators, and then a few keywords. We're not like reviewing this and getting back to you with permission to advance. This is so that we can get a head start on lining up reviewers. That is the only reason that we do this. And we are at that point taking a first pass at that eligibility review. If we see some problems, like you would not be eligible, you don't have a team that's broad enough or anything like that, we flag it at that point and you have a chance to fix it. It's not like we kick you out at this stage. Next slide. Full applications are due November 1st. Again, everything goes in through InfoReady. And these are not huge amounts of money, so we keep the proposal relatively light. Those 25K priming grants, it's 2 pages to explain what you're doing, 2.5 for the 60K teaming awards, and three pages for the scaling awards. What we really want to know is like, well, why is this project important? Like, why should we invest in it? And so we want you to explain what impact it will have on your field, should you succeed. And if you have broader impacts that are outside the field, with community partners, industry partners, anything like that, please do tell us. We need, some information, not gory amounts of information on the methodology and the work plan to be followed. And again, if say you're in the social sciences and, you're going to do a survey, I mean, you have to like have we're not asking you to go into like incredible detail, but you have to have enough detail in there so that a knowledgeable reader would at least understand that you've sort of hit the, you know how to do what you're proposing to do. And then the budget justification, and then we do absolutely for teaming and scaling in particular, we want to understand what that follow-on funding is. For the priming awards, yeah, we'd like to know, but that's not absolutely like the one of the core criteria that we use to evaluate those smaller awards, and ditto for the microgrants. Letter of commitment from the department chair, if you have, if there's in-kind support being offered, things like that. We want to make sure that we understand what the support is from the department. And we only want one letter for the teaming and the scaling. So basically that's a co-signed letter from the at least 3 chairs. And then the budget information. So next slide. For the microgrants, Toby, do you want to do these?
Yeah, absolutely. So microgrants, it follows the same kind of schema. However, you do not need a letter of expression needed to apply for these. The due date for these is going to be a little bit earlier, so October 12th. And the intent is that once we can get these in, hopefully within that October time point, we can already start to name awardees by November. So again, this is a very quick turnaround. Everything will go through InfoReady. And as Mike was saying with the other grants, this requires a 2-page statement. So again, we're looking at the broader impact that your particular idea will have on the field, a little bit about methodology, how you're going to do it, a brief budget justification. And then again, because it is not the impetus for these grants, we just want a little bit about the follow-on funding. So what this will allow you to do, what this can hopefully provide avenues for as you move forward. As with the other grants, the letter of commitment is really important for the microgrants. You want to be able to say that you are getting support. This is going to allow you to do something different, and that you have the full support of your team behind you. And again, we'll get to the budget just in a few more slides.
Okay. Okay, so the letters of commitment that's required for the priming, teaming, scaling for all of them. We only want one per proposal. Usually that comes from the lead investigator's chair. If the lead investigator is a chair, then it comes from the dean. And we want that single letter with the signatures from the chairs of the other investigators. Next slide, please. Okay. I will actually turn this over to Toby on budgets.
So one of the things about the budget is we do provide a template for you, and it has the list of the current fringe rate from 2025 on that sheet. So you can link to it, you can pull down whatever kind of data you need. But we really highly encourage you to work with your grants administrator in your department, in your school, just to have somebody look over everything and really help you streamline the process a little bit. Especially if you start talking about student rates, graduate student rates, what else you want to do with this funding. Those are going to be the people to really help you best identify and put all of that together. So, especially when you start to consider in-kind, cost sharing, other aspects of this, it's a lot. So again, your grants administrators are a perfect place to go for these kinds of things. As we stated earlier, these are not intended to be salary support for any of the grants. So regardless if you're talking microgrant, scaling, teaming, priming, it is exclusive for research and research development purposes, or scholarship and scholarship development purposes. The other thing that to kind of be mindful of is that specifically, these are not covering the cost of conference travel. So it is not intended to allow you to go to a number of opportunities just to connect with people. The caveat being is with the scaling grants, in that those realms, you really want to be able to start building out the team with either agencies, other groups, other schools that you're collaborating with. And so in those senses, you are allowed to travel and to connect or to bring people to Pitt to have something. But that's the variance with that. Again, any questions with any of this, please just reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you talk it through.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the travel piece, it really is, we're not like, when we say no conference, that's conference travel. That's not taking work that has already been done and presenting it. That's not what we're interested in. But travel again, bringing people here to build those teams, to put together the strategy, because this is travel that helps you get set up for follow-on funding, not necessarily travel for presenting work that's already been done, some supported other ways. Really important piece here, and unfortunately Amanda had to leave. Uh, but we do follow all of the rules that the university has related to support for graduate students. And the basic rule is if you are involving master students or PhD students in one of the projects, and it is related to their academic program, and then they have to be appointed either as a GSR or a GSA, and they then you have to provide a tuition scholarship. You have to then provide stipends, and the fringe must be included on that. Now, for the 25K priming and the 60K teaming, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do that within the budgets for those. And so that can be a kind of thing where a department could commit to providing those stipends and the tuition waivers kind of thing. And that would be something that then would be documented in the chair's letter. Scaling award, we do want to see graduate student support, and so that is something within the 400K is generally something that can be done. But schools, departments are more than able to provide in-kind contribution to make that possible, and that would be documented in the chair's letter. If the task that is proposed in the budget is not related to the students' research or academic training, then you can hire them as hourly workers. And so that's easiest if you're bringing in somebody from a different school, a different department, and it's the work is clearly not related to whatever their academic program is, then you can bring them on as hourly workers. For undergraduates, the presumption is that there is no sort of relatedness, and so you can always bring on the undergraduate students and pay them as hourly workers. Next slide. Do want to just very quickly mention that these are brief documents for both the expressions of interest and the full proposals. So always assume that you are writing for a reasonably intelligent reviewer, but they might not be, and in fact almost certainly will not be in your subfield or even in your field. So focus on the core concepts. Don't get bogged down in a lot of technical jargon and detail. Really, explain in relatively plain language what it is you're trying to accomplish, what your plan of attack is, and why it's important. But don't really like get down into a lot of really technical minutia. With that, we can jump to the next one. So the review process. So we use the same sort of set of evaluation criteria for all the momentum funds, but the different tracks have different weightings. And so significance of the project and the intended outcome is one of those criteria. Sort of the clarity of expression. Can we actually understand what it is that you are proposing? So there are times when people spend their very limited page budget on sort of background and sort of the state of the art, explaining that, and then they sort of drop a little, paragraph in at the end, sort of saying, and ta-da, this is what we're going to do. And that's getting the balance all wrong. So we do really need to understand, what it is that you are proposing, what is that work that you're going to do. And that way we can evaluate the feasibility of the project. Again, these are research development funds, and particularly for the teaming, the 60K teaming awards and the 200 or 400K scaling awards, that follow-on funding strategy is important, and it is weighted in the evaluation criteria. So you want to be very clear in identifying what funding you're going to go after. Now, we understand that, as you do, if you're successfully awarded and as you do the work, that those targets can change, new opportunities come up, or something that you thought you were going to pursue, the agency or the foundation decides to terminate that program. That's all beyond your control, but we do want to make sure that you are aimed at something for follow-on funding, particularly for those teaming and scaling awards. And then, of course, any support from the chairs of the deans, particularly in-kind support, is looked at. Like I mentioned before, assume multidisciplinary reviewers, so right for that broad audience. And then for the microgrants and for the priming awards, it's sort of like a peer review and down selection. For the teaming and the scaling, there is a pitch round where the final decisions are made. And so we go through a review on the teaming and the scaling, and then we invite in, since I usually only have money for 2 teaming and 2 scaling, we invite in 6 teams to pitch for teaming and 6 teams to pitch for scaling. On the scaling track, you will be pitching directly to the provost and to Senior Vice Chancellor Rob Rutenbar. So at the end of the meet, at the end of the 6 pitches, they come out and they tell us who won. And for the teaming, the pitch panel is myself, Shalom, and Mark Geraci from medicine. And then we have the other faculty members who help us coordinate the reviews. And that happens in January, and then we make the decisions, and I allocate all the funds. At the end of January, have Rob and the provost sign off on that, and then we make the announcements of who has been funded in early February. Next slide, please. So if you are selected, we do require that you participate in the internal funding showcase. We do ask for reports on your spending. And if you are not using the money, we do claw it back. We're not complete jerks on making sure that you only spend in 1 year, but if there are lots of things come up, but we will extend the period of performance on a case-by-case basis if there's justification for that. We do want progress reporting, so we do meet with particularly for the teaming and the scaling awardees, we meet every 6 months to sort of see how things are going. Part of why we're doing that is we want to make sure that we're bringing the proposal development resources that the university has to offer to help those teams pursue that follow-on funding. We do have requirements for outcome reporting, so publications, conference papers, student-supported, all those kinds of things. The normal academic scholarly outputs are things that we want you to report on. And then, like we said, have you serve as a reviewer in subsequent years. Next slide, please. Okay, so on to questions. But before we turn to the questions, there is the link to where you can find more information, and you will find the link to InfoReady. So let me scroll back up here and see where we got to on questions that people dropped in. I think budget example for priming. So that was Luisa's question. I think that's Toby can send you something, sort of an example to use. Microgrants to pay graduate students. So hopefully, Anna, that answered that question on graduate students. Again, hourly is allowed, but otherwise you would have to follow the GRA, GSA requirements if it's related to their academic program. We do not allow faculty salary on the any of the grant mechanisms. The priming grant did not decrease. It is 25K as it has been for the last couple of cycles. Before that, it was 16K, so we actually increased it. Uh, statement is the statement the full proposal or the letter of interest? So um that expression of interest, the first date, again, the 150 words is literally just so we can start lining up reviewers. The what to be November 1st deadline, I believe.
November 1st.
Uh, yep, that is the full application. So that's all there is.
I
Um,
see. So can we have any of the template for the either the letter of interest, expression of interest, or the full proposal?
So if you go to the website, we have all of for each of the types of grants, we have all of the guidelines listed out. There's not a template per se, but we do list out all the requirements and all the details necessary for both the expression of interest and for the actual application.
I see. So I also didn't find the application link. Is that in the info already?
So the application, like again, if you go to the main website that's listed on this last slide, so the Pitt Research internal funding and then the momentum funds, from there we have a little bit of detail about all of the different types of grants. When you click on any of those to get more information, there is a button that says click here to apply. That
I
then
see.
takes you over to InfoReady, and that's how you access everything.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
let's see. Daphne had a question. The scaling grant guidelines
Turned
include.
on the last.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I have a question. I don't know if you're reading any questions. I had a question about priming grants. I have received momentum grants in the past. Now priming grants are projects and research, or is it just research?
When you say projects, what so we are not looking for sort of like what you might think of as programmatic funding. Right, these are research development funds, and so uh it's most of them are for initiating a project and pursuing funding. The priming, which are those small 25K, in the arts and humanities, where oftentimes it's more about like getting a project, like say a book project over the finish line.
Okay, so how about I just tell you about our project here?
Sure, really quick.
So the momentum grants I've gotten in the past, I believe this was the first round they came out. I received like $5,500 to help start up a soil judging team. I'm over at Pitt Johnstown, by the way.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And yes. And then I got another one for a research project later on, and we're wrapping that up with publications this winter. But in 2025, it is my turn to host part of the National Collegiate Soil Judging Competition. And everyone here at my campus has directed me towards momentum funds as of help fund hosting this event.
Okay. So, that's not quite what we would be thinking, but come back and talk to us separately. When is that happening?
That's October of 25.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So we are going to have a like a regional. We're in the process of designing some very particular funding for the regional campuses because you do have such a different mix of responsibilities. Come and talk to us. That we're going to have something that's more appropriate for that.
I know momentum funds have changed over the first couple of years. And that first year I did get like a project funded. But it's changed now. Okay.
Yeah, so the regional campuses and we've had many, faculty from the regional campuses successfully win, priming awards, and I think we've had one uh, teaming award led by a regional campus faculty member, but there we do anticipate that there'll be like a much, one, because you don't have graduate students, so we expect like a much tighter integration of what you're proposing with your coursework, right? So research experience for undergraduate kind of a thing is very legit. But just funding an event is not quite what we're thinking with the current set of things. So again, that's why I say come and talk to us about the what's going on in 2025. I think we'll very soon have something that's more appropriate for what you're looking for.
So I'll email you guys later this week.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Cool, thanks. Okay. So I was on to Daphne's skill, description, interdisciplinary team and expertise. Better results, description, there's some team expertise. Hold on. So there's some overlap between these two requirements. For the first item, should the description focus on the faculty investigators? Let me see. Guidelines. Let Toby and I go back and look at that and follow up with you. I
I'm just
we,
not
let
entirely
us
clear
follow
what
up.
the question is. But so
Yeah, let us follow up with you separately on that one. Sorry about that. So Jonathan's slide said no salaries, no salaries for any faculty. You can fund, yes. So stipends or salary for the GSRs, the postdocs, is perfectly fine. Research assistant professors, so when we say no faculty salaries, that's tenure track, or appointment stream. Um, uh, we do on teaming and on scaling, but actually even for priming, if there are staff in particular that you need, that it's totally fine to put staff salary on. So if we've seen this on multiple scaling awards, if you need a project manager, if you need a sort of a biostat consult, if some of that kind of stuff where it's a staff salary, that is legit. But we do not allow faculty salaries, whether they're tenure track or appointment stream, on the budgets.
Mike, I think
Let's
I've gone through and answered the rest of the chat, but there was one question that Daphne had specific about travel for scaling grants. And should the travel be presented as tentative depending on whether program officers might prefer to meet remotely or via video conference?
Oh, yeah, yeah, we know that like post-COVID, a lot of stuff has changed. So we understand you probably may not need that much, or they may have preferences to do things via video conference. It's okay to budget for it, and then if you find out later, we're pretty flexible in allowing reprogramming. So that's totally fine. Or sometimes it's, you can pay for the program manager to come and visit campus, if they're willing to do that. So yeah, put it in if it turns out their preference is remote or hybrid, or video, then it's totally fine to reprogram. Okay, do we have
Question that just came in? Can the award be used for processing or computer parts in case of computing intensive projects?
So we do allow for equipment and instrumentation. So yes, I mean, we're not really thinking about, or really, just buying laptops is not our intent. But if we've had something where, people needed a computer to run a piece of equipment or something like that, that's totally legit. but be very clear as to what the use will be and why it's necessary.
I think that's it for the questions. So again, if anyone has any comments, anything else, please just reach out to us. There's an email address listed on the website, so that the PMF info at Pitt will be more than happy to get back to you as soon as we can. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us. It was a really good turnout, so thank you.
Okay. Looking forward to seeing your applications. Thank you all.